And okay, so let's start with, all right, Open Texas. Hey, listen, we've got a very special guest today. We're so excited to have her. She's Miss Jessica Lewis. She is running for an important seat. She's going to be replacing Judge Eric Moye, and we're excited to have her. Say hello, Jessica.
Hi, Grant. Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me.
And also, I want to introduce Michelle. She's the real brains in this outfit. And she's going to be interviewing Jessica. So I'm about to bow out. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Ready, Michelle?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon. How are y'all? So Jessica, we're so excited to interview you and have you on Open Texas today. I'm going to start with a few questions. So you're running for the 14th Judicial Court seat. You can talk about all of that, but we want you to introduce yourself, and we're just so excited to hear about you and what you're planning to do, and that the fact that you're a constitutional Republican, that's pretty exciting too. So if you could just share with us a little bit about you and your plans to run for this seat.
Yes. So yes. Hi, Michelle. I'm Jessica Voyce Lewis. I am running for the 14th Judicial District Court of Texas. That is a civil district court. That means it's just differentiating it from the criminal courts that handle the criminal matters. I just handle various levels of disputes, complex matters between companies, individuals, and those are this seat would be the one currently held by Judge Eric Moye.
Okay, awesome. So Jessica, just so that our viewers can understand a little bit about you, what is the qualifications that you have besides obviously a law degree, and why should Dallas County pick you for this seat?
Okay, yes, thank you. Yes, I've had people reach out and say that they would vote for a sack of potatoes at this point, Judge Moye. And I'm like, well, thank you. So for those people that's all they care about, I guess I'm not potatoes, but I started this way before the Shelley Luther incident. You know, we had to declare candidacy at the end of 2019. And I believe that our Dallas courts need a change, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But that is why I got into this. But in terms of my background specifically, you know, I'm an experienced attorney. I spent several years working in the big law space and working on a variety of complex matters for companies and in various jurisdictions, various types of courts. And that I really enjoyed. I thrived in that space. But as God tends to have a sense of humor and wants to remind me that his plans are often not mine. And literally just a couple of weeks after I'd paid off my student loans, you know, had all my plans, a nonprofit reached out that I'd been volunteering with and asked me to consider working with them full time. And I truly just felt led to do that. And so I then spent a couple of years in our primarily West Dallas, but also connecting with folks in South Dallas, representing residents who had just issues on their street, crime, and that they were being pressed by their neighbors. And so I would represent residents in these communities and just really got to know so many people in Dallas, and got to work with city officials and the police and neighborhood leaders to do this work. And just really, I mean, my eyes, I guess, were already open to some of those injustices that are in Dallas, but just really saw these things firsthand and got to connect with people. And so I did that for several years, connecting with our Dallas communities. And then while I've since felt called to come back to private practice to kind of resharpen some of my legal skills and really delve into the lawyer community again, specifically with Christian lawyers. I'm very much still connected with that nonprofit and those communities. And so, I've since then come back to private practice and currently the president of the Dallas chapter of Christian Legal Society. I'm really have a heart for people that, you know, they call themselves a Christian, then that should be that should play out in what they do with their practices. Faith should not be something you leave at the door, but if you believe that all people are created equal, if you believe that God cares about justice, then that should permeate everything you do. I'll take this opportunity, I think, to clarify a little bit about bankruptcy and insolvency, fun topics. Some people are like, okay, well, that's my background. And that is something that maybe people aren't as familiar with, but that area of the law is sometimes called the last general practitioners of law, as people get more and more specialized. Because when you walk a company through the Chapter 11 reorganization process, for example, you're dealing with issues all across the board: tax issues, environmental issues, insurance-related issues, and employer-employee relationships. So that is a space where you really are delving into all aspects of the law. And so that is, in terms of my qualification to serve in this role, just like a judge should be every time a court case comes in before them, should be looking at all these issues and seeing, okay, with fresh eyes, what are the facts in this case? What are the legal issues involved? That is what a lawyer does, and that is very, very, I would say, particular to the type of law that I practice.
It's awesome. I love hearing that you're a strong believer, a Christian. Obviously, we as Christians, we believe that our laws come from God and not from man. So that's a really great thing to know, that you believe that everybody's created equal and should have equal protection under the law. So I know that you did not handle this case, but we are going to ask a little bit about the Shelley Luther case. And, a lot of the criticism that has come from people within the Open Texas group was that they felt like he did not use his judicial conduct appropriately with this case. And I'm just curious if you feel that you can answer how you might have handled this case a little bit different had you been given the opportunity.
Well, yes, I do get that question, and I can't speak to this specific case in a way that would make it look like I've prejudged another case, right?
Yeah.
So I can't say that that all the specific facts would then lead to a specific ruling, and that would make it look like someone couldn't have an opportunity for fresh justice of their case before the court were I to be on it. But I do think that this case has brought to light issues of judicial discretion. I think that there's a lot of talking points, sometimes on both sides, where that people will latch onto one particular thing, and I think that it's more complicated understanding the importance of the rule of law, but also the constitutional aspects of it, both under our Texas Constitution, looking at our judicial officers, like their discretion. There's opportunity to apply that in a wide range of ways, and specifically with things like contempt orders. And I think it's highlighted how the worldview of the person that is in that role matters, because are they going to, by default, just accept one side of a narrative? Are they going to have respect for the law and respect for which also includes the constitutionality of that law? Are they going to show mercy, but in a just way? Those things are all in the concept of worldview, and that's why I keep focusing on the fact that worldview matters. If somebody, it's not if even, it's everyone has a worldview. And so if someone is in the role of a judge, that worldview will show in their exercise of discretion, which is something that is actually applied a lot more than people think. The words on the page can that we should stick to as respect for separation of powers as applied in our or as provided in our constitutions, the U.S. and Texas. But that is also through the lens of constitutionality and understanding that the words there only provide so much sometimes, and that where sometimes even specifically and explicitly they provide the judges with a degree of discretion. And we want people in those roles who we trust their discretion.
Absolutely. Wow, that's a great answer, and one I very much appreciate, because I personally have worked on many campaigns, and judges are held to a higher standard, a different standard, and running for office, everybody always considers you're a politician, you're running for office, but yet judges specifically have specific rules and regulations, judicial conduct that they must follow. So have you ever ran for an office seat before? If this is your first time, do you consider yourself a politician? I think you've sort of touched on some of this, but just to be a little more specific. And also, I kind of will throw in another question in with that is, like, how will you balance being an independent attorney and an elected official if elected?
Okay, yes. With respect to the politician, I would say no. I'm just going to say I'm so not camera ready. That's just not me. I'm a relational person. I'm someone that wants to talk to you, back months past, right? At Starbucks across the table, right? And so that's who I am. And thankfully, that translates just fine to the bench. You're having discussions, it's a dialogue with the attorneys and communicating with juries and those types of things. But that's definitely not my bent. I do care about the issues going on in our country and are all the way down, right? So I care about specifically, I think, getting Christians more involved in public service. I think that it's by default. I see it in my own life. The fact that I feel like we tend to serve more in churches and nonprofits, and those are awesome. Those are great places to serve, but we often neglect public service. And I do think that if we believe in those principles, that we are all created equal, and in the image of God, and that God has called us to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly, as he does in Micah 6:8, then I think we're called to also step into those spaces, and they can be scary. Politics, it's icky. It's something that we don't want to get into sometimes. And I think that that's a lost opportunity to really care for our communities. And so that's why I've been willing to step into this space. Particularly, I think, in Dallas County, because it has been, it is under the control of one party. And when either side, any side, when that is the case, I think that breeds corruption, because then, our hearts kind of go that way. People start caring about power, care about influence, and justice takes a back seat. And so I think particularly in this environment, in this area, I think that some of us that might not be politicians are called to step up and to do something with that. In terms of the second part that you mentioned about being an independent attorney, in the judicial role, I would be guided by the Texas Code of Judicial Conduct, and that governs certain actions. And those rules matter, and that provide consistency and guidance for our courts. And the point is to hopefully not have an overly politicized judiciary, but is focusing on impartial administration of our courts and of justice in our courts. And so that is how I think that would be guided at that point.
Awesome. How would you handle conflict from the bench? I know that's kind of a hot button topic, and there's a lot that happens. How do you personally handle conflict just in day to day, and especially being a judge? How are you going to handle those kind of hard issues?
Well, when there is conflict, a court is a place of conflict, right? It's people that often, whether it's their personal livelihood or, their businesses and their employees, these cases matter, they wouldn't be there. And so it's a place of conflict. And I think that this is where humility matters. I think this is where being independent does matter, bringing a fresh eye to each case, not looking and saying, oh, I know that lawyer. I know, not that reputation doesn't matter. Reputation for a lawyer does matter. That we should guard our reputations, but we shouldn't be like, okay, I know that lawyer, so I'm going to favor them, or that person donated to my, that firm donated to my campaign, or, those things should not have any place in the courtroom. And so when in dealing with conflicts before the court, I think that those principles of humility, impartiality, and excellence in knowing that the judge is not going to be lazy, not going to be trying to show up unprepared, and really focus on trying to provide as clear a path to an opportunity to justice as they can in that courtroom.
Very good. Good. Jessica, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that we need to make in Dallas County, in the justice system in Dallas County? What do you think some of the biggest challenges that Dallas County is facing right now, and why? Obviously, I have my own personal opinions of why we need to change the Dallas County judicial system. It's very critical, but just from your perspective, we'd like to hear what you think some of the biggest challenges are that Dallas is facing.
I mean, I touched a little bit on that already, right? With the idea of whenever you have any kind of political party with a stronghold, people are people, and people are corruptible, and none of us need to. I guess we should. None of us should think we're immune to that. We should all strive to fight those things in us, and I think that we can fight those things. But I think that the current state is not one that is just conducive to complete fair and impartial administration in our courts, and that is not to disparage every individual in these courts that is in these roles, or the fact that people can't get justice in the courts. I'm not saying that, but I think that these issues are real and need to be addressed. And I would hope the people on both sides of the political spectrum, the many facets of the political spectrum at this point, would acknowledge that and see that there are some issues. We've seen it brought to light in some of our just local government corruption and some of the cases that have been brought in our courts. And those things are troubling. I just heard too many stories, even within, the Democratic Party, right, of someone didn't rule the right way and they got primaried, and there's elements of fear and power manipulation, those types of things. And I'm again not pointing at anybody specifically, but if there's enough of those stories out there that give that people lose confidence in our courts, and that does not help us as a society. We need to know that our courts are someplace that we can go to get a fair and balanced opportunity for a just result in our case. That even if we didn't like the result, that we knew we had the opportunity, and that there's just some questions about that, unfortunately, right now.
This is probably a question that you would absolutely. I'm just going to ask it just so that our viewers know that this is where you stand. But are you a true constitutional conservative? When you would look at the law, it will come directly from the Constitution and how you value life and liberty and all the things that we as Americans value? Would that be fair to say that? I mean, I feel like you've already kind of defined. I'm just going to say it just so that we have it out there. That's what a lot of people that are looking for a judge are looking for. The judge you just described yourself as, one that will be impartial and merciful and care about the Constitution, number one, because we've seen a lot of politics played within the judicial system itself, and that's just wrong. So we just want to make sure that we are working to elect someone who stands strong behind constitutional principles. And with that, would you say that you would describe yourself in that way?
Yes, I would say, because that's part of the law. I mean, if you respect the rule of law, that is the way that we have been so blessed in our country to have as our foundation, our constitutions, and that is something that needs to be taken into consideration. Now, there's plenty of things that aren't addressed, and we have lots of laws and statutes and that would need to be considered and looked at. But all of that's within the lens of the fabric from which all of these laws is cut.
Well, what a great interview we've had with you today. I do want to ask you, do you have a website or some way that people can get in touch with you? Because I know a lot of people within our group are like, anybody that's running, I know all about her. And it was kind of hard to find you a little bit. So how can our viewers get in touch with you and contribute or volunteer or help with your campaign? What can they do?
Yes, no, thank you for asking. Yes, that's I go by for this campaign. It's Jessica Voyce Lewis, VOYCE, because Googling Jessica Lewis, who knows what you'll get. Very generic sounding name. Otherwise, if you go to Lewis for Dallas, and that's LEWISFOR Dallas.com. That is my website that gives you some basic links, information, ways to email the campaign to get connected, ways to donate. It's a little bit more about me. I also have links to, Twitter, Facebook, those types of things on there as well. And
what are those handles, if you don't mind me interrupting? I'm sorry. Your Twitter handle is.
Certainly. So they're on the website too. So if you go to lewisfordallas.com, you'll get everything. And I don't know if there's a way maybe they can post this on this Facebook or whatever, wherever this interview is shown. Maybe there's a way we can give them. It's at JL, but the L is Lewis for Dallas is the Twitter. And then I think it's /Lewis for Dallas for Facebook.
Awesome. Very good. They all wanted to know. Everybody's curious about you and so excited to meet you and help you and get involved because many in our group feel that there was such injustice that happened in the courtroom, obviously with this Luther case. So he's spotlighted the fact that we need to change our judicial system in Dallas. That's for sure. And we sure hope the best for you. And thank you for stepping up to the plate and running. I love the fact that you're a Christian, and I will personally pray for you that you'll do well. So thank you for your time and everything. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. And that's the message, is that these races matter. The Shelley Luther incident has brought light to the fact that judicial races actually happen, but they've always mattered. And we appreciate you folks just sharing this message and letting people learn that these things are happening and need the attention.
Thank you so much for being on. And I just want to say to our Open Texas folks, hey, listen, you need to get on board with Jessica. So we want you to go ahead and do some donating. We want you to donate to her cause. And Jessica, do you need some volunteers?
Well, things are going to be changing over the course of, as our society is changing. We'll do more in-person things, I think, down the road. We haven't had a lot of that more recently, but we will, need folks, particularly in the Dallas County area, that are willing to just spread the word and to talk to folks, talk to others, have these conversations. And I think particularly within the lens of showing that that this message is one of caring about people, and that is about justice and equality under the law, and not as much just about the anger political side. And so I think that's best done through volunteers who can have one-on-one conversations with people.
That's great. Okay, thank you, Jessica. Michelle, awesome. Thank you so much. This is an incredible interview, and we're gonna close out this session, and y'all go straight to her site and take advantage of donating and getting involved. Talk to you, and thank you from Open Texas. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.